It's time for the Joy Business Report with me, Mamisi Amiche Thompson. In our headlines, Association of Ghana Industries describes contraction of the sector in the second quarter of this year as unsurprising, saying government must do more to turn around the dwindling manufacturing sector. Also, only 5 banks scored above the threshold of 98% in the latest Customer Satisfaction Index by the Chartered Institute of Marketing. Also, Ghana Revenue Authority pledges to expand its enforcement drive to cover all forms of taxes rather than focus on just the value-added tax. Thanks for staying with us. Now, the Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, has described contraction of the industry or sector as not surprising. According to latest figures by the Statistical Service, though Ghana's economy grew by 3.2% in the second quarter of this year, the industry contracted by 1.9%. Speaking to Joy Business, the Greater Accra Regional Chairman Chonam Akpalu said the manufacturing sector, which falls under industry, is no longer attractive. He's therefore calling on government to create an enabling environment for the growth of local industries to discourage importation.
Government itself is very committed. In fact, we have had several deliberations where they have great documents. They have the National Industrialization Transformation Agenda and all of that. Great documents, great ideas. But it is one thing to really formulate the policies. It is another thing ensuring that they are implemented to achieve the result. It is not enough. What government is doing is not enough to cushion industry. We really need to see more. We need to see a situation where industry pay less the electricity bill and water bill, not household. It is time we see industry borrow money at 10%, 8%, as you get in Ethiopia or South Africa.
AGI's Greater Accra Regional Chairman Chonam Akpalu there. Now, only 5 banks scored above the threshold of 98% in the latest Customer Satisfaction Index by the Chartered Institute of Marketing Ghana, CIMG. This is an improvement over the 2021 edition, where only 2 banks met the threshold. According to the survey, Universal Merchant Bank tops the list, followed by Stanbic Bank. They scored 99.7% and 99.5% respectively. He is a lead researcher and chief executive for the Consumer Insights Consult Limited, Dr. Irenus Gundona.
Overall, when you look at the level of service quality, it went up as a measure by 5%. But however, we had a challenge when it came to remote banking, where I refer to as digital banking. There's a long route for us. The overall industry declined by 1%. And it's even worse when you disaggregate the data to the various banks. The performance there was quite low. So it's something that the banks will need to look at, improve technology so that customers can experience the level of service quality when it comes to the digital and remote banking. So overall, that is what we had for this year.
Now, commercial banks are pushing for minimal capital requirement review to be tied to the risk of financial institutions. Bank of Ghana is looking at adjusting the amount capital that commercial banks should hold. This was after it asked the banks to submit their recapitalization plans. John Ewa is chief executive of the Association of Banks.
As a bank, the basic principle is you keep your capital that is commensurate with the level of risk that you are taking. So if you have these risk assets on your books, then that will determine how much capital you need to support that volume of risk or the value of risk that you have on your balance sheet. So the Basel Accord does not technically tell you put X amount of capital. It says that as you are taking on risk, you have to have the right capital levels to support. When it was 400 million, there were banks in this country that had in excess of $1 billion in capital. There were some banks in excess of 2 billion in equity. The regulatory requirement is the minimum benchmark that as a bank you are supposed to keep. But depending on your level of risk that you are assuming, undertaking transactions over transactions, granting facilities here and there, of course that is what will drive the amount of capital that you will need.
John Ewa is Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Banks. The Ghana Revenue Authority has pledged to expand its enforcement drive to cover all forms of taxes rather than focusing on just the value-added tax, according to Assistant Commissioner in charge of enforcement at Accra Central, Joseph Annan. This has become necessary to ensure that the state is not denied adequate tax revenue. He's cautioning individuals and businesses that attempt to resist the authority to face the full rigors of the law. He spoke to Joy Business after an exercise where 12 retail shop owners were invited to answer questions on their failure to register and issue VAT invoice.
We are doing total tax compliance because the tax is not limited to VAT. That's CIT, PAYE, PIT, excise, tax stamp. We are looking at all taxes that are applicable to a particular taxpayer that we visit. So we are not limiting our search to only VAT. That is why when we come to an area, we look around and see taxpayers who qualify to register for one tax type or the other. And I'm telling the public that is how we are going to approach our quest to increase our collection, that is a tax collection in this country. So it is not only VAT that you must comply with, but you must comply with all tax types. And we are going to go into our system when we come to you to look at all other tax types that are applicable to your business to know whether you are compliant.
Now, the Chief Executive of Nutri Health Foods and Beverages, Wahima Intim, is urging entrepreneurs to pay critical attention to the packaging of their products as a selling point for most products. Now, according to her, packaging will give an entrepreneur an added advantage over similar products in the market. She spoke on Joy Business Masterclass program.
Entrepreneurs should pay a lot of attention to how they brand and package because it makes a huge difference between what you are able to sell the product at. I think there are a lot of opportunities that are untapped, and so the value addition helps you to create a business right here. I mean, now all sorts of interesting things coming up. I just bought more money in a tube. So many things that can be packaged. Not always about the money. You can start small and scale up and build up.
The National Information Technology Agency, NITA, has stated that it will partner private sector players to expand infrastructure in the country. This NITA is hopeful will quickly drive government's digitalization agenda. Speaking at the launch of 20th anniversary of Pan-African Tech Solution Provider CWG, the Director General Richard Ochre-Fosu, in a speech read on his behalf, said engaging the private sector will propel the growth in digital inclusion.
NITA serves as a regulatory body that ensures the compliance with ICT laws, regulations, and standards. It sets guidelines and frameworks that governs the use of information technology in various sectors, including telecommunication, banking, healthcare, and government agencies. By establishing and enforcing these regulations, NITA strives to create a secure and efficient ICT ecosystem, and we value the role of CWG and other stakeholders in this respect. It is significant to mention that NITA has since May 2001 handed the operations of the National Data Center and the Eastern Corridor Fiber Optic Network to a technical partner, that's Martin Fracco.
Yabwedu speaking on behalf of the Director General of NITA, Richard Ochre-Fosu, on the 20th anniversary launch of Pan-African Tech Solution Provider. And now to Investor Eye. You do not necessarily have to believe everybody who purports to come from a credible investment company or even a regulator such as the Bank of Ghana to sell an investment product to you. Always do a background check on the person or send an email to the company to verify the authenticity of the person. Listen to the head of technical ICT and digital forensic at the Economic and Organized Crime Office, Amankwa Atta.
Impersonations come. Fraudsters may impersonate government agents, bank, or well-known companies to gain trust. They use this to trust or trick individuals into revealing personal information or making fraudulent payments. Be cautious when receiving communication from organizations requesting personal information. Verify their legitimacy directly through official channels, such as contacting the organization using their official contact line.
And that's head of technical and ICT digital forensic at the Economic and Organized Crime Office Amankwa Atta to the commodities market. Crude oil lost marginally to open trading at $92 a barrel. Gold is selling at $1,928 an ounce after losing almost $2. Cocoa is trading at $3,570 a ton after falling by $72. And that's it for the Joy Business Report. I am Amazing Amiche Thompson. Back to you, Kojo.
Oh, back